My name is Amelia Taylor. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years serving in the U.S. Army. 3 weeks ago, I came back from a deployment in Syria after receiving a commendation for pulling 6 soldiers out of a collapsed field station under mortar fire. They handed me a medal. I handed it to my CO and said, "Cool. Can I get some real leave now?" I was approved for 6 weeks of leave. First time I'd been home in 2 years. 2 years of eating out of vacuum-sealed bags, showering once every 3 days, and sleeping with one boot on just in case. You'd think coming back to your family after all that would feel like a warm welcome. It didn't. My hometown is Clearwater, Ohio. It's dull, flat, and smells like fertilizer if the wind blows incorrectly. My mom still lives in the same 2-story house on Maple Street that we grew up in. I texted her when I landed in Cincinnati and told her I'd be in around noon. She replied 3 hours later, "Chill's still in the flower pot." That was it. "No, can't wait to see you. No, we're so proud." Just the usual. Cold, short, and vague enough to sound like she thought she was being helpful. I drove 2 hours from the airport in a rental that smelled like cheap body spray and fries. When I pulled up, the driveway was empty. No balloons, no banner, no welcome home sign made out of printer paper taped together by hand. Just silence. I grabbed my duffel, walked up the porch, and checked the flower pot. The key was there, just like she said. No surprises. Inside, the house hadn't changed. Same beige walls. The same dusty photos are on the hallway shelf. My high school graduation picture sat next to Kelsey's senior prom photo, which for some reason was double-framed. Travis's baby picture still had crayon doodles from when he tried to edit it at age 4. Swing that was charming enough to keep. I dropped my bag at the base of the stairs and breathed. It didn't smell like home. It smelled like an air freshener and last night's microwave lasagna. Then I heard her, my mom, Linda Monroe. She was in the kitchen, talking on the phone. I paused just before rounding the corner. "Yeah, she just got in," she said. "No, I didn't ask about the medal. I mean, she gets those all the time. But she better not be expecting a parade. We've got real stuff going on here." "Real stuff?" "Right." "Like what? Wine night at the country club?" I stepped into the kitchen. She turned, looked surprised for a half second, then smiled like I was someone she just remembered existed. "There she is," she said, "the globetrotter." "Hey, Mom," I said, dropping my shoulders. She offered a one-armed hug, the kind you give your tax guy when he tells you your refund's smaller than expected. Then she returned to the stove, stirring something like canned chili, pretending to be homemade. "You hungry?" she asked. "Not really." "Still can't eat regular food after all that army stuff?" "Still can't eat when I'm tired and no one says hi," I said. She didn't laugh. She said, "Well, you'll get back into it." She asked 0 questions about my deployment. Not how long I'd been gone, not where I'd been, not if I'd made it back in one piece. I was in the house for 10 minutes and regret not taking leave in Montana. Then came Kelsey, my younger sister, the Monroe family's golden child. She breezed through the front door with sunglasses on and iced coffee in her hand, like she was starring in a one-woman show called Being Slightly Important. "Oh my God," she said. "You're here. I didn't know you were coming today." I stared at her. "I texted Mom 3 days ago." "Did you? Huh, must have missed it." She smiled like that was an acceptable excuse, then launched into a monologue about her upcoming wedding at Lake Hill Vineyards, how the florals would be tastefully extravagant, and how Greg's parents can only chip in so much, like, we'll see. Meanwhile, I stood there with my boots still on, holding the duffel bag I'd carried through airports, war zones, and desert storms. No one asked how I was. No one offered to take the bag. If you've ever come home thinking it'd feel like something, and instead it felt like less than nothing, drop a comment below and hit that subscribe button. This story's just getting started. Greg, the fiancé I hadn't met, was allergic to gluten, sensitive to red meat, and didn't love the idea of kids. But he was good to Kelsey and had big plans in sales. which meant he owned 3 monogrammed polos and a Bluetooth headset he wore in public. My mom asked if I could sleep in the guest room this time because Kelsey was using my old bedroom to stage wedding gifts. So I got the room with the creaky twin bed and the broken closet door. The same room we use for storing Christmas decorations and junk mail. That was my welcome. I set my alarm for 0600 out of habit. It wasn't like anyone here would wake me with coffee or conversation. At 5:55 a.m., I was awake, staring at a ceiling fan that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. I lay in the guest room, surrounded by half-unpacked Christmas bins and a pile of Kelsey's Amazon boxes. Travis's old cat yowled somewhere in the hallway, like it was auditioning for a horror movie. I'd forgotten how loud this house was in the morning, even when nobody was talking. Downstairs, the coffee machine groaned like it was dying slowly. I walked into the kitchen, and Mom was in her silk robe, flipping through a stack of coupons like she was studying for a test. "You're up early," she said without looking up. "Old habits," I muttered, grabbing a mug. She pointed to the pantry. "We've got that almond creamer you like. Kelsey uses it now, right?" Kelsey uses everything I used to. My bedroom, my old jewelry box, my place in the house. I didn't say anything, just poured the coffee and leaned against the counter. Kelsey came down 10 minutes later as she'd rolled straight out of a catalog. Perfect waves, brushed lashes, matching the yoga set that looked more expensive than my combat boots. "Oh good, you're up," she said to me. "We're doing brunch, just us." I blinked. "Brunch?" "Yeah, you, me, Mom." "It's kind of a thing now," Mom chimed in. "Just something light before the day gets busy." I didn't have the energy to ask. I was busy with what? So I sat there while Kelsey scrolled through her wedding checklist on her iPad, rattling off vendors like she was running a corporate launch. Mom nodded, throwing in things like, "We could ask Cheryl," or "Maybe Greg's mom can help." They never once looked at me. Finally, Mom turned and said, "We were wondering if you'd be willing to help with a few expenses." Nothing crazy. There it was. "What expenses?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Well," Kelsey jumped in, "the venue gave us a deadline on the second deposit, and the florist is being super inflexible. I mean, it's not a big ask." "How much?" I asked flatly. They both hesitated, and then Kelsey said, 12. 1,200? I asked, sipping my coffee. Kelsey tilted her head. 1,000. I set my mug down a little too hard. Mom raised her hands like she was negotiating a hostage release. "Honey, it's just temporary. We know things are tight for you now that you're transitioning out of the military." "I'm not," I said. "What?" "I'm not out. I'm still active. This is leave, not retirement." That shut them up for a beat. "Well, still," Kelsey said, recovering quickly. "You're not like on a mission right now, and you've got savings. We know how disciplined you are." Translation: "You don't spend money on nice things, so hand it over." "No," I said. "I'm not paying 12 grand for a wedding I wasn't invited to help plan." Mom blinked. "You're overreacting." I stood up. "No, I'm finally reacting." The silence was dense. Kelsey muttered, "You're being really difficult." Mom sighed without missing a beat and said, "We've all been carrying a lot of stress lately. You coming in hot isn't helping." I looked at both of them. Same worn-out manipulation, same half-baked guilt trip. "Don't worry," I said, grabbing my keys off the counter. "I'll get out of your way." I stepped out into the driveway, gulping cold air like I'd been underwater for too long. The sun had barely cleared the trees. I could still smell burnt toast from inside. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I wasn't staying. The problem with coming home is you expect to find something waiting for you. Comfort, connection, some sign that you still belong. But all I found was a brunch ambush and a thinly disguised shakedown. I hadn't even unpacked my bag yet, but I was already planning how to repack it. And then I heard the back door creak open behind me, so soft I might have missed it if I hadn't been trained to notice everything. I didn't turn around, but I knew from the way the door clicked shut that it was Mom, not Kelsey. Her slippers scraped across the porch like she wanted me to hear her coming. I stayed where I was, arms crossed, breath fogging in front of me, watching a squirrel dig in the frozen flower bed like it had better luck than I did. You know, she started softly. You don't have to make everything so hard. I kept my eyes on the driveway. Didn't know no was a federal offense. She took a step closer. You haven't changed much. Still stubborn as ever. That made me turn. And you haven't changed either, still asking with one hand while hiding the knife in the other. Her mouth tightened. You think I'm the villain here? I stared at her. I think you don't like hearing the word boundaries. She folded her arms, the silk of her robe catching the morning light. Your sister's wedding is important. I'm not arguing that. She needs help. She has a fiancé, a full-time job, and access to every credit card you've ever opened in your name. She doesn't need help. She wants funding. Mom took a breath, that shaky inhale she used to fake while trying to cry. This isn't about money, Amelia. This is about family showing up. Funny, I said. That only applies when I'm footing the bill. That hit. Her face twitched. She didn't speak for a moment, then said, You know, Kelsey told me something. She thinks maybe the Army's changed you. That you've come back different. Colder, I barked out a laugh. Yeah, war zones'll do that. I didn't mean it like that. No? How'd you mean it? Mom reached out like she might touch my arm, but I stepped back. Her hand hung in the air a second too long before she let it fall. We were talking, she said, brushing invisible lint off her robe. About the house, the future. If maybe it's time you figured out a new place to stay. I froze. You're kicking me out. Don't be dramatic, she said quickly. You're not a child anymore. You don't need to crash in your sister's storage closet. You're a grown woman, independent, strong. And inconvenient, I added. Don't forget that part. She blinked. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is being invited home under the illusion of family, and then getting shoved out the second I stop handing over cash. You said it yourself, she replied, voice rising slightly. You've got your career, you've got your benefits. You don't need us. I didn't realize needing someone was a requirement for being treated like a human being. Another beat of silence passed between us, colder than the wind whipping around the side of the house. Finally, she said, Well, we've decided. You can stay through the weekend, but we think it's best you find somewhere else after that. Travis is coming back from Colorado and needs the space. Travis, I repeated, the guy who hasn't worked in 8 months and still thinks networking means playing Xbox with strangers. He's family, she snapped. So am I, allegedly. She didn't respond. I nodded slowly. Got it, loud and clear. I walked past her and back into the house. Kelsey and Jack were sitting at the kitchen table. Kelsey gave me a raised brow like she was daring me to make a scene. Jack just sipped his coffee and stared at the placemat like it had answers. I went upstairs, closed the guest room door, and locked it. The noise of their talking downstairs faded under the hum of my thoughts. They thought I was done. Thought I'd fold like always. They had no idea what was in my bag, just 3 feet from their laundry baskets and boxes of junk. Records, receipts, documents. Things they'd forgotten or never knew I kept. But I remembered every transfer, every late-night call, every time they said, "You're our hero," right before asking for money. I opened my duffel bag and pulled out the folder. Not the red one yet, just a slim blue one I'd used for base finance reviews. Inside were dates, bank slips, and screen captures I'd printed out. I'd never needed to prove myself before, but something in me itched to line everything up, to show it all, raw and unedited. Not to plead, but to reveal. They wanted to kick me out, let them. But before I walked out that door, they would understand precisely what they'd been living off of. I laid the documents on the bed, one by one, like I was cleaning a rifle before deployment. The printouts were wrinkled from months of being carried across states and countries. I flattened them out on the comforter, my makeshift war table. The smell of cheap detergent and lavender air freshener clung to the sheets. It didn't fit the mood. One by one, $2,500 for Kelsey's car repairs. $8,000 for Mom's dental emergency that magically turned into a Vegas weekend with Jack 6 months later. $12,000 was wired directly into Travis's account for moving expenses. That landed him in a condo with a hot tub he never paid rent on. I'd kept them all, not because I needed revenge, not back then, but because I was trained to keep records. The Army drills it into you. Log it, label it, timestamp it. You can't argue with black and white. The receipts were ugly in a way no weapon could be. They weren't mistakes. They were patterns. I matched each transfer with the excuse it came with, clipped from old text chains and emails. From Mom. "We'll pay you back by March, sweetheart. You're such a blessing." From Kelsey. "I swear this is the last time. I'm gonna get my finances together." From Travis. "Bro, you're a lifesaver. Legit. I'll Venmo you back next paycheck." That was 3 years ago. I picked up a red pen, standard issue, nothing special, and started circling the worst ones. Just numbers at first. Then I added little notes in the margins. Never repaid. Casino withdrawal 2 days later. Kelsey bought designer handbag the same weekend. This wasn't about proving it to them. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't insane. That I hadn't imagined the leeching. The lies were always neatly wrapped in love and family. But strip that away, and you've got a scam with birthday cards. There was a knock. I didn't answer. Another knock, louder this time. "Amelia?" It was Jack. I waited. "Hey, your mom said you were packing. You, want to talk about it?" I opened the door just wide enough to see his glassy eyes and the tumbler in his hand. It wasn't coffee. "We've got nothing to talk about, Jack." He tried a smile. "Come on now. We're not kicking you out, we're just rebalancing. You've been gone a long time. Things shifted." "Save it," I said, and put the drink down. "It's not even noon." He chuckled like that was funny. It wasn't. I shut the door in his face and went back to the bed, lined everything up again. Somewhere downstairs, laughter burst from the TV. A rerun of a sitcom they all loved. The one I always found hollow. I took a photo of the bed, the entire layout, just in case. Then I pulled out my laptop and logged into my savings account. My balance is $3,211. And that was after 20 years of discipline and military pay. I'd spent more on other people than I'd saved for myself. My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. I wasn't built for tears anymore. You spend enough time around body bags and folded flags and realize emotions are for after. I opened a blank document and began drafting something I never thought I'd write. A repayment demand, not a threat, not a lawsuit, yet. Just the truth, with interest. I wasn't asking them to love me, just to admit what they'd taken. I typed the first name, Kelsey, then Travis, then Mom, then Jack. Next to each I wrote a number. Then I underlined it. I knew they'd scoff, call me dramatic, controlling, unforgiving. But I was finally done pretending that being quiet made me stronger. I saved the file, printed a copy, and slid it into the blue folder. One folder down, the red one came next. In it were screenshots they didn't know I had. Instagram stories, tagged photos, vacation check-ins. Evidence of the money trail. Photos of Mom and Jack sipping cocktails at a rooftop bar the week I sent them money for roof repairs. A close-up of Kelsey's new engagement ring with the caption, "He did good." Except I knew who paid for the down payment on that ring. And Travis, standing before a leased Jeep with the caption, "New whip. Work hard, play harder." I laughed once, dry. No joy in it. Each lie had a timestamp, a witness, a digital breadcrumb. I'd been their war chest. Not anymore. I zipped up the red folder like I was sealing a classified file, because in a way, that's exactly what it was. I knew I needed help. Not emotional comfort, not advice. Real, strategic help. So I called the only person I trusted outside that toxic circle, Nina Garrett. We served together at Camp Pendleton. She once disarmed an IED with a bobby pin and a stick of gum. If anyone knew how to handle sabotage, especially the kind that came dressed in family smiles, it was her. We met at a diner in Portsmouth. It was one of those quiet places that smelled like old coffee and fried regret. She slid into the booth across from me and looked me over once. "You look like someone who just got stabbed in the back and handed the bill," she said, sipping her black coffee like jet fuel. "Close," I replied. "Try evicted by your own sister after financing her entire adult life." She didn't blink. "What do you need?" "I need to prove they used me. I need documentation, I need strategy, and I need someone who won't tell me to forgive and move on." She nodded. "So you're finally done with the martyr routine. Good. Let's get to work." That's how Operation Backbone was born. I called it that because it was the one thing my family never expected me to grow. Nina introduced me to a private investigator she knew, a guy named Curtis Doyle, who looked like a middle school gym teacher, but had the instincts of a bloodhound and zero sense of humor. He didn't do chit-chat, but he did know how to find bank records, track property purchases, and trace money trails like a damn accountant with handcuffs. "Give me 30 days, he said after reviewing my red folder. "You'll know everything they've done with your money, including things you never wanted to know." He was right. 2 weeks later, I got a drop file emailed to me with encrypted links and a subject line that read, "Your family's greatest hits." It was 84 pages long. Stephanie and her husband own not one, but 2 properties. One purchased during the same week she claimed her mortgage was overdue. Drew had a BMW registered under an LLC that never existed. And Mom had spent over $20,000 at River Rock Casino in the past 6 months alone. Meanwhile, I'd been skipping vacations, eating ramen, and putting off dental work like a broke college student. The folder swelled. I added screenshots, statements, receipts. Nina helped organize it by category: fraudulent use of funds, unfulfilled loan agreements, and emotional manipulation patterns. It read like a damn war crime tribunal, but in pastel font and Venmo screenshots. "Now," Nina said, leaning back in her chair like a field commander, "what's your endgame?" I didn't hesitate. They get exposed. In a way they can't talk around, guilt trip over, or gaslight me out of. Publicly, if I have to. She raised her coffee in a mock toast. To scorched earth, but that wasn't quite it. I didn't want vengeance. I wanted justice. I wanted the psychological leash off my neck. I wanted to stop waking up at 4 a.m., thinking about who needed money next. Nina's plan was simple: present the facts, don't engage emotionally, offer legal repayment terms, and, if necessary, sue. But only after the confrontation. After the truth was laid bare in front of everyone at once, not just for maximum impact, but because I deserved the catharsis. That's when the idea hit me. Christmas. One day, my family was guaranteed to be together in one place, pretending to be functional. The timing wasn't just poetic, it was strategic. They'd let their guard down. They'd expect a gift, not a reckoning. I started drafting letters, one for each of them. Not threats, not rants, just cold clinical truth. Signed, dated, and stapled to documented proof. I even formatted them with army-grade clarity. No ambiguity, no wiggle room. Then I went to Staples, bought a fresh red folder, and labeled it with duct tape. "Read me first." I slid the whole stack inside and zipped it up. That night, I sat in my small apartment, staring at the folder like it was ticking. The TV was off. My phone was silent. The only thing making noise was the radiator knocking as if it had something to say. I didn't need it to. I already knew what I had to do. I slipped on my boots and tucked the folder into my rucksack, as it belonged to my discharge papers and field medals. It was 6:12 a.m. when I pulled into the driveway of Nina Garrett's duplex, just outside Fort Belvoir. She opened the door before I knocked, holding a mug of black coffee and a Glock tucked in the back waistband of her sweatpants, like it was just another Tuesday. "You look like hell," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I slept in my truck outside a gas station off I-95, I muttered, dropping my rucksack onto her couch. So yeah, hell tracks. She raised an eyebrow. Your family finally pulled the trigger. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and pulled out the red folder. She didn't ask before flipping it open. She just sat down, cross-legged, and started reading. I watched her face change with every turn of the page. First disbelief, then anger. And finally that tight-lipped expression she wore in the field before detonating something. They've been bleeding you dry for years, she said, without looking up. Yep. And they kicked you out because you stopped paying. Basically. And they don't know you're still active duty, I smiled just a little. They think I got discharged for good, budget cuts or whatever excuse I fed them. Letting them think I was useless was easier than explaining how classified things work. Nina leaned back, letting the folder rest on her lap. You planning to fight back? That's why I brought the folder. I took a long sip from her coffee mug. I want to nuke them, legally, quietly, like I learned from the best. Nina snorted. You're damn right you did. We spent the next 2 hours sorting everything into piles. Loans with text receipts, bank transfers, fake emergencies. She added sticky notes with color codes. Green is legally provable. Yellow is morally disgusting. Red for emotionally brutal. By 9 a.m., she'd opened her laptop and started compiling an evidence binder like we were prepping for a military tribunal. She didn't ask many questions, just worked with the focus of someone who'd once disabled roadside bombs for a living. Your mom's got a gambling problem, she said, holding up a bank statement. Multiple ATM pulls from casino resorts in Connecticut. You paid her utility bills while she was blowing money at Mohegan Sun. Figures. Your sister, what's her name again? Kelsey. She used your money for lipo and veneers, not medical bills. I didn't even flinch. I saw the photos on Instagram. She tagged a cosmetic dentist in one of her stories. She forgot to make it private. Nina tilted her head. Travis, my brother, failed 3 startups, bought himself a Mustang with the last business loan I gave him. And the car's registered in his name? Yep, but he's hiding it in his buddy's garage. Thought I wouldn't notice. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Amelia, you could get all this back. Maybe not all, but a good chunk. Especially if we hit them with civil claims and back it up with this folder. I'm not doing it for the money, she nodded slowly. You're doing it to remind them I'm not the ATM they think I am. Exactly. There was a long pause. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. You still love them, huh? I didn't answer for a while. I don't know if it's love or just leftover guilt. Either way, I'm done paying for it. That's when she printed the first stack of forms. Debt recovery claims, preliminary demand letters. She made a checklist of every step I'd need to file in Virginia and Massachusetts. You sure about this? She asked as I signed the first draft. I deployed to Kandahar with 2 cracked ribs and no backup. I can handle my mother's crocodile tears and my sister's fake victim routine. She grinned. Now that's the Amelia I remember. The days stretched on. We ate bad pizza, built a timeline, and reviewed screenshots from my cloud backup that I hadn't looked at in years. Text from my mom asking for a small favor. Venmo request from Kelsey labeled for groceries that matched the exact cost of designer heels. It wasn't just documentation, it was an autopsy. Every page showed a piece of me they'd carved away, smiling while they did it. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just kept reading, writing, signing. By nightfall, we had 3 folders: legal, financial, and emotional. Nina said I should burn the 3rd one after we were done. I told her I'd think about it. We sat in silence for a while after. She finally asked, So when are you going to drop the hammer? When everyone's sitting around the Christmas ham, I said. Right after Kelsey gives me another passive-aggressive mug. No music swelled. No dramatic cut. Just the hum of the ceiling fan and the soft click of a pen as I checked the following box. 2 days later, I stood outside my mother's house with a rental car idling behind me and frostbiting through my gloves. It was 8:59 a.m., and I was exactly 1 minute early. The driveway was complete. Travis's beat-up SUV, Kelsey's sleek white crossover, and Mom's Toyota that had just come from an overpriced wash. I pulled my scarf tighter and rang the doorbell, holding my breath like I used to before stepping into mission briefings in the desert. The door swung open fast. Mom's smile was too broad, eyes scanning behind me like she expected someone to be with me. "You came," she said, stepping aside. I nodded. "You asked me to." Inside, the house looked like a holiday catalog exploded. Garland wrapped around every banister, fake snow dusted over windowsills, and a 12-foot tree in the living room blinked with coordinated lights. It smelled like cinnamon, butter, and subtle resentment. "I brought the ham and the wine," I said, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. Kelsey looked up from her phone and gave me a dry "hi," barely audible over Mariah Carey. Travis didn't say a word. Mom kept glancing at the oven clock like something big was about to happen. "We thought it'd be nice to do presents before breakfast this year," she said, smiling at no one in particular. "Sure," I replied, already sensing the tension vibrating under the peppermint-scented air. We gathered in the living room, just like in old times, except now it felt more like a deposition than a celebration. Mom handed out gifts with fake warmth. Mine was a clearance bin candle with the tag still on it. Kelsey got a monogram leather purse. Travis unwrapped a smartwatch. Then Kelsey stood up. "We have something to talk about," she said, with the kind of smug tone I'd heard from junior officers about to mess up royally. She looked at Mom, who gave a slight nod, then at Travis, who didn't even pretend to look sorry. "We had a family meeting last week," Kelsey started, and my stomach didn't drop, it calcified. "A vote," Mom added, adding that this was the PTA, not actual lives. Travis crossed his arms, staring at the Christmas tree as if it owed him money. Kelsey folded her arms. "We've decided it's best if you take some time away from the family. We just think you've changed. Since deployment." I raised an eyebrow. "Changed how?" "You're cold," Mom said, like she didn't remember icing me out for months. "You don't understand what we go through. And honestly, your tone lately has been condescending." I let out a short laugh. "Is this about money?" "No," Kelsey snapped, too fast. "It's about emotional manipulation." Travis mumbled, "We're tired of being treated like burdens." I blinked. "You mean tired of being cut off?" "It's not healthy," Mom said, her voice trembly and theatrical. "This family dynamic, it's toxic. We need space." "You're kicking me out," I said, not asking. No one answered. I stood up slowly. "Okay." Kelsey looked thrown off. She expected a breakdown, a fight, something dramatic. I gave her nothing. "You're not going to argue?" Mom asked, tone uncertain. "No," I said. "I don't argue with people who voted me out of their lives over gift cards and unmet expectations." Kelsey opened her mouth again, but I reached into my coat and pulled out the red folder. I walked over to the tree and placed it right under the lowest branch, just left of a glittering joy ornament. "What's that?" Travis asked, finally speaking with some actual fear in his voice. "Receipts," I said, turning back to them. Nobody moved. For the first time that morning, the house was quiet. No music, no chewing, no fake laughter. I'd stick around to explain, but I've got better things to do than justify my existence to people who just fired me from the family like I was a failed assistant manager at Target. I picked up my bag. "Enjoy breakfast," and I walked out, not looking back. I didn't hear the front door close behind me, but I knew when they opened that folder. It started with a sharp shout from Kelsey, muffled through the walls, but unmistakably hers. I didn't slow down. I walked to the rental car, popped the trunk, and dropped in the half-empty bag that had once held my final gifts to them. Then I sat behind the wheel and waited, engine humming, the dashboard clock ticking louder than it should have. A second yell, Travis this time, punctuated the silence. Something slammed hard inside the house. I pictured them flipping through the pages, finding the bank statements, the screenshots, and the itemized spreadsheet titled family contributions, 7 years. I'd highlighted every transfer in blood red. Even the font was military clean, unforgiving, and used in after-action reports. 10 minutes passed before my phone buzzed. First came a string of texts from Mom. "Amelia, what is this? We need to talk now. You are completely out of line. How could you do this on Christmas? Call me, right now." Then Kelsey chimed in. "You've lost your mind. Are you seriously threatening legal action over family? You're pathetic." Not a single message asked if what I'd laid out was true. That told me everything. Then came the calls. I silenced them one after another, letting their names fill my screen like a roll call of the guilty. I didn't owe them explanations anymore. What I did owe them was consequences. Real ones. I drove to a quiet diner 2 towns over, ordered coffee, and opened my notebook. I began logging timestamps, when they texted, what they said. Documentation matters now more than ever for legal defense and clarity. I didn't want to second-guess a damn thing. An hour later, Nina Garrett texted. "You good? Heard from your brother." "He says you went nuclear," I replied. "They dropped the first bomb years ago. I just gave them the damage report." She responded with a skull emoji, and then, "Proud of you, standing by if you need backup." It helped. Nina always cut through the noise. We served together in Kandahar, and she'd seen me patch up gunshot wounds in 110-degree heat. While our supply convoy took mortar fire, she was among the few who understood that endurance wasn't the same as tolerance, especially not when the abuse came from people you shared a last name with. Later that evening, a knock on my hotel room door startled me. It was Jack, standing awkwardly in a snow-dusted coat, holding a white envelope in his gloved hands. He looked around the hallway before speaking. "Your mom doesn't know I came." I stepped aside, letting him in. He glanced around the room like he was checking for landmines. I offered him no small talk. "I read it all," he said, handing me the envelope, the folder, every page. Inside were copies of receipts I'd sent over the years, his handwriting now scribbled in the margins, dates, amounts, notes like, "Didn't know this came from her," or "Karen told me it was from an inheritance." "She lied," he said. "A lot. I didn't know half of it." "You didn't ask," I replied. He winced. "Fair?" I sat across from him. "So why are you here?" I wanted to say, "I believe you, and thank you for keeping us afloat, even when I didn't deserve it." It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough for Jack. "I'll cooperate with whatever repayment plan you pursue," he added. "Just let me know what you want me to sign." I nodded once. "You'll hear from my lawyer." When he left, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt nothing didn't but a faint buzz of adrenaline tapering off like post-mission calm. I contacted the first person who'd realized this wasn't about money, it was about value. Who valued me, and who only valued what I could give. Back in the hotel room, I turned on the lamp and opened my laptop. I began building a second folder, this one for healing. New passwords, new boundaries, and a new bank account they would never have access to again. I hit print on my laptop and watched the first page spit into the tray. Another transfer receipt from my account to Mom's was labeled emergency medical bill. The irony wasn't lost on me. That same month, she'd posted photos online from her weekend at a spa resort in Vermont. I wasn't even angry anymore, just focused. Focused on the way I'd been when I trained to jump from helicopters or handle a weapon under pressure. This was just another mission. And this time, I wasn't rescuing anyone but myself. I had spreadsheets now. Names, dates, amounts, and reasons. Text messages backing up each promise to pay back. Screenshots of Instagram posts that contradicted their sob stories. Bank statements with my transfers are highlighted in neon yellow. A photo of the house Stephanie and Greg had just downsized into. 3 stories, pool in the back, and a 3-car garage. They said they were struggling. Struggling meant putting your Range Rover under a shaded pergola. And the most satisfying part, the numbers. I calculated everything to the cent. $213,587 over 6 years. That didn't include groceries, gifts, vacations they invited me to, then made me pay for, or surprise emergencies, like new phones or overdue vet bills. That was just cold, hard cash. I labeled the folder on my desktop. Red folder, master. It was morbidly funny. The exact phrase was once used in the Army for death benefits paperwork. In this case, it was documenting the death of my tolerance. I didn't talk to them during this phase. I needed the silence. I needed to put myself in a headspace where I could move without guilt, without second-guessing every step. They texted and they called. I didn't respond. Kelsey sent a TikTok, which she thought was funny. Travis asked if I'd heard about some job lead at a vet supply startup. Mom left voicemails full of soft-spoken concern and casual updates, like I was just off the grid, not intentionally severing the cord. I wasn't cutting them off forever, just putting them on notice. I printed everything, stuffed every page into a blood-red binder I bought from an office supply store on a rainy Tuesday. It felt appropriate to dress a wound before cauterizing it. I laminated the cover page for no reason other than to make it feel official. Not dramatic, just prepared. Then came the legal stuff. I wasn't going nuclear, but I wanted to understand my options. I met with a lawyer, Barbara Watkins, mid-50s, sharp as a scalpel and twice as efficient. She read the first 10 pages and looked up at me with an expression that was half admiration, half pity. "This isn't just support," she said, flipping through the stack. "This is financial abuse." She explained that I had a case, multiple cases. Loans were masquerading as gifts, deceitful behavior to obtain money, and even potential fraud. It wouldn't get me all my money back, but it would get their attention. She also told me something else. You don't have to sue them, but you do have to choose. Keep bleeding quietly or show them you know how to stop the hemorrhage. I chose the second option. By the end of that week, the red folder wasn't just a collection of evidence. It was my strategy. Every page was a receipt, not just of what they'd taken from me, but of how long I'd allowed it. It wasn't very comfortable in a way, but also liberating. I wasn't some naive soldier anymore trying to buy love with wire transfers. I was a grown woman who'd financed everyone's lives but her own, and was finally done playing savior. And no, I hadn't left the Army. I was still in uniform, still serving, still the same person, just no longer interested in being their silent sponsor. They didn't know that yet, and they wouldn't until Christmas. Without a word, I dropped the red folder onto Barbara's desk and watched her eyebrows lift halfway to her hairline. She opened it like it might bite. Her red nails flipped through pages with professional speed, pausing occasionally to mutter things like Jesus or unbelievable. She didn't ask how long it took me to put it together. She could tell. When she was done, she sat back and laced her fingers. "Well," she said, "you weren't kidding." "Nope. This is tighter than most business cases I get from clients twice your age. You cataloged everything. Every dollar, every lie, every thank you with a knife behind it." Barbara tilted her head. "And you don't want to go to court?" "Not unless they push me there. I just want them to know I'm done playing dumb." "Fair." She drafted a letter on the spot. It wasn't angry, it wasn't emotional, it was tactical, just like I wanted. It outlined the total amount loaned, the attached documentation, the timeline of transfers, and the expectation of repayment, or at minimum, written acknowledgement of debt. No threats, just consequences. We printed 3 copies. Barbara sealed each one in a legal envelope with crisp precision. "These are ready to serve," she said. "I'll deliver them myself." Her lips curled into a smile. Military-grade confrontation. I like it. I left her office with the envelopes tucked into a flat briefcase and drove straight to the print shop. There, I made one more copy of everything, my master folder, plus scanned backups uploaded to 3 encrypted drives. I wasn't leaving a single opening for denial or deletion. The next stop was unplanned. I parked in front of my old high school, engine idling. I hadn't been there in years, but the building looked the same. Red brick, cracked sidewalk, a flagpole that never flew anything straight. I sat there for 15 minutes before pulling away. I wasn't sure why I'd stopped. Maybe to remind myself that the girl who walked out of that place had no idea who she'd have to become. I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt proud, and maybe a little angry that it took me this long. Later that night, I stood in my kitchen reheating leftover takeout when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail pinged. Hey, Amelia. It's Greg, Kelsey's fiancé. I know we haven't talked, but I saw some of the stuff you sent. Look, I just wanted to say I didn't know about most of it. I thought she told me it was family support, not loans, not like this. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. I saved the voicemail without responding. The cracks were spreading. The next morning, I delivered the envelopes. Mom's first. She wasn't home, so I slid it through the mail slot and took a picture of it half tucked inside the door frame. Time-stamped. Geotagged. Legal delivery confirmed. Then Travis. He opened the door shirtless, rubbing his eyes, clearly just waking up at 11 a.m. He looked down at the envelope, and then up at me. What is this? You'll want to read it carefully. It's not optional. You serious right now? Dead. I walked away before he could speak again. Last stop, Kelsey. She lived in a gated community, courtesy of a fiancé to whom she hadn't told the whole truth. I buzzed the call box. She answered on the second ring. What? I've got something for you. Silence. Then, fine. Come in. She met me at the door wearing full makeup like she'd been expecting a camera crew. Her smile was tight and fake. Didn't expect to see you in person, she said, folding her arms. I handed her the envelope. Everything's documented. Read it, show it to your lawyer, scream into a pillow. Just don't call me until you're ready to be an adult. She snorted. You're unbelievable. No, I said. I'm finished. I turned and walked down the polished stone path. Briefcase empty, hands light for the first time in years. There was no yelling, no breakdown, no public explosion, just delivery of facts, of boundaries, of final notice. And that was enough. I drove away with the windows down, letting the cold slap me awake like a drill sergeant with something to prove. I didn't blast music. I didn't scream into the air like some Netflix revenge fantasy. I gripped the wheel tighter and let the wind peel back whatever guilt still stuck to my skin. I was tired, not physically, but the kind of tiredness that seeps into your bones when you've carried a whole damn family on your back for over a decade. Back at the apartment, I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the couch, and opened my laptop. I wasn't refreshing social media. I was refreshing my email inbox. I didn't wait long. First came a message from Mom. Subject line, "We need to fix this." I opened it. It was a 3-paragraph masterclass in emotional deflection. No acknowledgement of the debt. No ownership of the lies. Just a word salad of guilt trips and veiled insults. I don't understand how you could do this to us. After everything we've been through as a family, this is going to tear us apart. No mention of the actual contents of the folder. No mention of the years of financial and emotional manipulation. Just her usual fallback strategy. Turn the spotlight around and pretend she's the victim of a witch hunt. I didn't respond. Then Kelsey texted. Just 2 words. You psycho. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was lazy. She had nothing else. Just a 2-word tantrum from someone who'd never worked a 12-hour shift in her life. Then she followed up. Greg saw everything. I hope you're happy. That one hit. Not because I cared what Greg thought, but because she finally understood the cost of exposure. You don't get to lie forever. Not in the age of screenshots and joint taxes. At 10:13 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Hello? Amelia? The voice was cautious, male, older. "This is Greg's dad. Jim," I paused. "Okay. I just wanted to say, I read the file. My wife and I did. We didn't know about any of this. Not surprising. We've already started a conversation with Greg. He's not doing great. But he needed to see it, and so did we." Silence. "Anyway," he said, voice gentler now. "Whatever happens next, thank you for not staying silent." "Thanks for the call, Jim." He hung up. I set the phone down and stared at the wall. I didn't feel victorious. I felt vindicated, and there's a difference. Victory is about beating someone. Vindication is about finally being seen. The next morning, Nina showed up unannounced with 2 coffees and a box of donuts. She looked at me like a sergeant checking on a soldier after a night raid. "Well?" she asked, handing me the coffee. "They're cracking," she grinned. "Good." We sat silently, chewing stale donuts and watching the morning light creep through the blinds. Then she asked the one question I hadn't fully prepared for. "What happens if none of them pay?" I wiped powdered sugar from my hands and leaned back. "Then I never speak to them again. And if they try to manipulate their way back in? They won't get through." "You sure?" "I've got boundaries now," she nodded. "Damn right you do." Later that afternoon, I checked my mailbox and found a certified letter from a local attorney. Kelsey's name is on the return address. Inside was a formal response. Denial. Every claim I'd made was labeled inaccurate, out of context, or fabricated. Not a single dollar was admitted. Not a single apology. But that's the thing about truth backed by paper. It doesn't need your permission to exist. I scanned the whole letter, uploaded it into the red folder, and flagged it for Barbara. No emotion, just process. That night, while heating leftovers, I got one final text. It was from Travis. "I'm broke. I get it. You win. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. Because I didn't need to win. I just needed to stop losing. And finally, I had." I folded the letter from Kelsey's lawyer once and again until it was small enough to disappear in my palm. I didn't tear it. I didn't burn it. I just placed it in a drawer next to old medals and forgotten utility bills, things that used to matter but now just filled space. Then I locked the drawer and stood up. It was sunny outside, cold but clear. It's one of those rare winter days that tricks you into thinking things might get better. I grabbed my coat and walked. No destination, just movement. Something my drill instructor once said echoed. If you can't fix the fight, change the ground. I passed a bakery, a park, and a closed-down hardware store. Ended up at a small used bookstore tucked between a vape shop and a payday loan office. I went in. Not because I wanted a book. Because I needed a place that didn't smell like memory. The guy behind the counter didn't even look up. I wandered the aisles until I found a shelf labeled Memoir. One caught my eye. Breaking Point. A Soldier's Journey After the War. I flipped it open and read a paragraph that hit too close. Sometimes the battlefield follows you home. It just looks like your living room. I bought it. Outside, I sat unopened on a bench with the unopened book in my lap. And I finally let myself feel it. The betrayal. The years lost. The birthdays were spent wiring money instead of blowing out candles. I paid for the weddings but barely got a seat at them. The holidays were spent half in uniform, half invisible. It didn't come out in tears. It came out in breath, deep, full, final. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted restoration, of self, of peace, of boundaries. That night, I drafted one last document for the red folder. Not legal, not financial, just mine. It was titled Terms of Reconnection. It had 5 bullet points. 1. Respect is non-negotiable. 2. No more money, ever. 3. Lying is immediate grounds for cutoff. 4. Any apology must include accountability. 5. My service is not leverage. It's sacrifice. I printed, signed, and slid it into the folder with everything else. Then I did something wild. I started a new folder. This one is labeled green. In it, I put the lease application for a house I'd been eyeing near Quantico, quiet with a backyard. I added the email thread with a nonprofit that helped vets transition into civilian leadership roles, and the acceptance letter from a part-time MBA program I'd been too scared to pursue until now. This was the new war plan, not to destroy anyone, but to rebuild me. I turned off my phone for 24 hours, just disappeared. No one died. No one imploded. The world kept turning, and so did I. When I turned it back on, there was one voicemail from Jack. "Hey, I know everything's a mess, but I just wanted to say I miss my sister. Not the ATM, not the rescuer. Just you. No pressure. Just thought you should hear that." I didn't call back, but I saved the message. The next morning, I met Nina for breakfast. She slid into the booth and raised an eyebrow. "You look different." "Lighter, number dangerous," I grinned. "Good." We talked about nothing important, just pancakes and weather and the idiot who parked across both spaces outside. It was normal, and for once, normal didn't feel fake. Before we parted, she asked, "You gonna keep the red folder?" "Yeah," I said. "It's proof." "Of what?" "That I finally learned how to stop bleeding." She nodded like that made perfect sense. Back home, I opened the laptop and logged into a new account under a new email. No one in my family had the password. No shared banking. No shared anything. I uploaded both folders, red and green. One for remembering, the other is for moving forward. I clicked the lid shut on my laptop and sat back, letting the quiet remind me what peace sounded like. I wasn't anticipating the next emergency for the first time in years. No one was calling with some crisis disguised as a favor. My phone wasn't buzzing. The air felt still, honest, even boring, glorious. I made coffee slowly, no rush, no multitasking. I just waited while it brewed and took a breath. My breath. Not someone else's to borrow. I'd scheduled no meetings that day, no family, no confrontation. Just errands. I picked up my dry cleaning, bought a new lockbox for my documents, replaced the sad little plastic plant in my kitchen with a real one. A low-maintenance snake plant. Survives almost anything like me. At the checkout line, the cashier asked, "Military discount." I blinked, then nodded. "Yeah," I said, still active. She smiled. "Thanks for your service." That used to feel strange, like a weight I had to carry. Now it felt like armor I'd finally earned the right to keep on or take off, depending on the day. Later, I stopped by the leasing office for the house near Quantico. The woman behind the desk, Michelle, had kind eyes and fast fingers. "We've got 2 applicants behind you," she said. "But you're pre-approved, credit score's solid, references check out." I handed her the check. "Then let's do it." She smiled and printed the final form. "Welcome home, Ms. Taylor." No hesitation, no anxiety, just yes. On the way out, I noticed a young couple touring another unit. He wore a navy hoodie, and she was holding a clipboard with printed questions. I remember being that hopeful once. I didn't envy them, didn't pity them. I just hoped they got a better start than I did. At home, I boxed up a few things I didn't want to bring to the new place. Old gifts from the family, photos I wasn't in, awards they never came to see me receive into a donation pile. It's not a bitter move, just making space, literally and otherwise. Then came the email, from Barbara. Subject, final update, Taylor family file. I opened it. She'd attached PDFs, time-stamped copies of her communications with Travis's new attorney. Travis had agreed to a small monthly repayment plan, legally binding, signed. The amount was pitiful in the grand scheme, but it wasn't about that anymore. It was the first time he'd ever put anything in writing. Mom had lawyered up but gone quiet. Barbara flagged it as posturing. Kelsey, unsurprisingly, remained combative. Her attorney had filed no counterclaim, but kept using frivolous and vindictive in their responses. Barbara's note beneath the updates was short. "You've held your ground. If anything escalates, I'm ready. I replied with just 2 words. Thank you. Then I closed the email, stood up, and poured another coffee. Not because I needed the caffeine, but because I finally had time to sit and taste it. The walls of my apartment no longer felt like a bunker. No more folders sprawled across the table. No more post-it notes stuck to every surface. No more living like I was under constant fire. I turned on some music. Not military cadence, not white noise, real music. A blues playlist I hadn't touched in years. I sat back down, sipped, and listened. One song came on with a lyric I hadn't heard in forever. Don't come knocking if you helped build the cage. I smiled. It wasn't that I hated them. I didn't owe them anything anymore, not explanations, access, or even updates. They could twist the story however they wanted to make themselves the victims. They could call me cold, distant, ungrateful. They always had. But I wasn't carrying that anymore. That was theirs to hold. I packed the last box of my apartment with steady hands and no second thoughts. No shaking, no hesitation, just tape, stack, lift. It wasn't heavy compared to the years I'd spent dragging guilt around like body armor. I had one last sweep to make. Under the couch, behind the fridge, in the closet where I used to keep emergency duffels. Nothing left but dust and a few crumpled receipts. The place looked sterile now, like I'd never really lived here, just waited here. I left the keys on the counter, locked the door behind me, and walked to the car. The new house sat 40 minutes away, tucked in a quiet cul-de-sac near a park and a small creek. Not flashy, not expensive, just mine. The driveway was empty when I pulled in, and the porch light clicked on automatically like it already knew I was coming home. Sunlight poured through the windows, bouncing off freshly painted walls and bare floors. I set the first box down in the corner of my home office. It had a real door. A lock. Privacy. Something I hadn't had even in childhood. I walked through the house slowly. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. Every room is a blank slate. No shared past. No inherited chaos. Just space. Peace. Silence with edges I could live inside without flinching. I unpacked one box before stopping. Just the essentials. I need a coffee maker, clean sheets, a laptop, and a red folder. I placed that last one in the top drawer of my desk. Not because I needed to see it often, but because I wanted to remember it existed. A record, not of revenge, but of release. That evening, I sat on the back porch with a beer, and no one was asking for anything. The air was cool and dry. A dog barked 2 houses down. Kids rode by on bikes. I watched the sunset dip behind the tree line, and for once, I didn't feel like a ghost sitting in someone else's life. I pulled out my phone. Messages still sat unopened. From Mom, "We're still family, you can't erase that." From Kelsey, "I hope you're proud of yourself." From Travis, "Let me know if we can talk. I don't know how to fix this." And from Jack, "I left. I'm not living with them anymore. Not because of you, because of me. Just thought you should know." I read each one once. Then I archived them. Not deleted, just shelved. Like people who'd once taken everything and now didn't know how to sit with silence. I opened a new email draft. Subject line, reconnection terms. I didn't send it, but I wrote it. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just aware. I don't need apologies. I need distance. I'm not looking to punish anyone, but I won't volunteer to be hurt again. If we speak again, it'll be on neutral ground. No guilt, no debt. I'm not the same person you last saw, and that's a good thing. I saved it in my drafts and closed the app. The stars came out slowly, no city lights to drown them. I leaned back in the porch chair and let the quiet wrap around me like a blanket that finally fit. I had done the hard thing, not just walking away, but staying gone. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't about teaching them a lesson. It was about choosing myself. and I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation for the first time in years. I took another sip of beer, lifted my feet, and took a long, easy breath. They used to call me the strong one. They were wrong. Now I was. Funny how long it takes to realize you were never hard to love, just surrounded by people who needed you broken to feel whole. I don't flinch when the phone rings now. I don't scan my bank account before saying yes to coffee. I sleep better, eat slower, laugh easier. Maybe they'll change, maybe they won't. But I'm not circling that drain anymore. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped building new ones with the same old nails. Whatever they choose to remember about me, I'll be okay with it. Because I remember everything. And I'm finally done forgetting myself. If this story hit close to home or reminded you of how messy, wild, and unfair family can get, go ahead and subscribe. We've got more family revenge stories, real family stories, and the kind of family revenge that doesn't need a punchline to hit hard. Stick around. You're not alone in this.